1. All right, so let's dive into the next section. The next training program that I think is critical is really how do you master a script. And today we're going to go through the 7 I refer to advanced steps to become a master of any script. As most of I have spent, most of my business career, of the last 12, 13 years learning scripts, mastering scripts, delivering scripts, presenting, creating scripts, teaching scripts. So, I mean, this is, a world that I've spent pretty much my entire life on. And, my father has been doing it for 40 years as a professional. And, both of my older brothers are some of the best in the industry, in the world. So, this is a topic I'm very passionate about. And, yeah, it's taken me from a state of I actually was a very shy, didn't like to talk to people type of guy, very internal, very analytical. And it's really through all of the training that now I'm super, I guess I'm a little bit more dynamic. I have great conversations with people, start conversations all over the place, talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere. But I really credit that to all of the work that I've done in the area of learning scripts and learning presentations. That's given me all that confidence that it's like, you know what, I could talk to anyone, anytime, anywhere, right? And I could sell anything. You give me, you put me into the medical industry, I will learn every script, I'll learn every product, I'll learn everything that I need to learn. I'll be able to present it, sell it, no matter what it is. So, this skill set of how to master a script is not just, hey, you guys, you need to memorize this, you need to follow it word for word so that you can, set more appointments for us. There's a lot more to it that I want you guys to be able to get value out of. If I'm going to convert you into a power prospector, it's way more than just, here's a script, memorize it, and good luck, go get some appointments for me, call me when you get something. Way more than that. So obviously step number 1 is, you got to memorize the words. You got to memorize the words in the lines, period, end of story. And, the best approach to that is really the chanting of the script. That's the absolute best approach that we've seen, over the years. And I've done everything. I've written it out, I've recorded it live, listened to it on, recordings of it. I've done it all. But the chanting really out loud is designed to give you muscle memory. And that's how it gets done. And then I got introduced to this strategy from my father, which was surprising because I was doing the chant out loud for 20 to 30 minutes at a time, hand write it for 10 to 20 minutes at a time, do the recording into a recorder, listen to it at night. I used to listen to a CD of the script being played actually with classical Baroque music in the background, just so I can get it internalized while I was sleeping. So, I've done it all. Right? I think it's a little more than most of you. So, but when my father introduced me to this simple strategy of chant the first line 5 times in a row, then chant the second line 5 times in a row, and then chant both lines together 5 times together, and then add the third. Chant the third line 5 times, then chant the first, second, and third together 5 times. And that pattern, I literally had seen people go from not being able to, memorize a script within a week to like memorizing scripts within like a day. And that was amazing. So, most of you guys don't know, but, when I originally was working for my father's company, when I first got on board, if you didn't memorize the script, the basic script at my dad's company as a new salesperson, if you didn't memorize it, and then were able to present it in front of the group from memory, you would actually be fired at the end of the first week. So that was your way in. You had to memorize the script, present it to the group live without any help, and if you didn't do it, you got fired on the spot. So, you guys can see I've been playing around with this for a long time. And then, there's my little, the best approach is really this approach. So for those of you that are newer, you don't underestimate this strategy. And I think probably for a lot of you veterans on the line, I'm sure you tried all your other stuff. I promise you, do this strategy, you'll have this stuff down in no time. Okay, let's take a look at, the next point. And, here's a quote from, my father, who's the, godfather of real estate prospecting. Mike Ferry says, "A good script is just a series of open-ended questions that leads the prospect to the desired end result." So that's all that it is. It's just a series of questions that leads the prospect to the desired end result. So if that's the case, step number 2 is to understand each and every question on the script. To understand each question. Why is that question there? Why is it in that position? What is the objective that question is trying to accomplish? And, for those of you that were on that training session where I dove into all the different types of questions that we can ask, you started to realize, whoa, that, when I write this script for you guys, I'm littering it with multiple different question strategies to really create this amazing end result. So your job is not to just get the words memorized, the lines memorized, but to really start to understand the real strategy behind the script and each one of those questions. And I think it was Melanie yesterday, you brought that up as something, one of the things you need to step up your game on. So I really respected that a lot. Okay, step number 3 is really about how to present the line. And, we've talked about that presenting the line has a lot to do with your tonality, right? Has a tremendous amount to do with your body language, has a lot to do with pausing. Michelle and I had a great live role play session yesterday, and she's got a great tonality, she's got a great pace, nice quick pace, really great tone, very captivating, but she wasn't utilizing her pauses at those more important moments in the script. So what are the pauses that you need to create emphasis around certain aspects of the script? Okay, another thing is the downswing. See, a lot of you, what happens is you do a great job in the script, and then once you're getting to that question that's like the close question on the script, like the really critical moment in the script, for some reason you get a little anxious and you run out of breath at that last minute or last second, and then all of a sudden you're doing your call to action in the script and your tone goes up. Would you like to have a home evaluation report? Right? Versus, would you guys like to have a home evaluation report sent to you? Would you like that either via email, or would you like them to come over inside the next 2 weeks to see if we, to give you really the highest possible price we could sell your home in the next 30 days or so? So which one would you prefer? Downswing, prefer. Which one would you prefer? Right? So can you see that I was really acting out that line? That wasn't, I didn't just do that like Patrick Ferry. Wow, he's so good. I have been working on how to present these lines, working how to present these phrases my entire career. So, don't be, if you're like, well, I don't have it down yet, Patrick, don't worry. I just want you guys to continuously be improving your game. I put a lot of different what are referred to as NLP language patterns in there in the script, and we've got to be aware of those. There's a lot of different communication skills that we need to ingrain sometimes in that line. Okay? Communication skills are things like having concern, to ask a question with a certain level of concern. A communication skill would be to ask a question with a lot of enthusiasm and excitement. Hey, do you know anyone who's, who possibly be thinking about buying or selling? Some enthusiasm, some concern, totally different communication tone. So, a lot of the scripts require different little skill sets that you need to learn. Okay? And what we've discussed is this is all about being engaging. Engaging. And what we mean by engaging is drawing them into the presentation. Because we all naturally know when you're prospecting over the phone, they tend to try and push away, and they tend to try and resist, and they tend to try and escape the conversation. So we have to be 10 times more engaging, pull them in. Okay? My father says it's really just like being an actor or an actress. So if any of you ever had any aspirations to be an actor or an actress, well, I'm giving you all of the practice right now with learning the scripts and how to present it and how to be engaging and take a script and turn it into a beautiful live interactive conversation. That's all acting is. Okay, we have discussed this, but I want to make sure you guys really own this formula. Effective communication is 7% the words that you use. So, meaning that your communication over the phone is not about the words. What it's really about is your tonality. And what's even more is your body language. So, when we get to step number 3 of learning a script, it's no longer about the words. It's about the meaning and the end result that we want to create from the question. Right? Step number 2, understand the question, understand where we want to go. And then number 3 is how do we actually act out that line to make it such that we really engage them fully. And it's all about your tonality, and it's all about your body language. So if you guys see my prospecting station that I just set up, because I'm going to start up on another prospecting rampage, I have a stand-up station. Okay, it's because prospecting sitting down, how much do I have of all my body language? Body language is at a limited sitting. So one of the things that, as you guys get more and more successful with your bosses, we are going to need to have a conversation about how to set up a ideal prospecting station for you so that you can be standing, you can be comfortable, and you can be powerful, okay, with a great headset. So those are some critical aspects. So just to reiterate, steps 1, 2, and 3 are to be learned as soon as possible before you start calling. So, when we give you a new script, like, when you guys first started and I gave you the just listed script, and it was like, we got to learn it today, and you got to learn it tomorrow, and let's practice and role play. Look, it's like, we got to learn this. You got to put in the time. Not just like, oh, I'll just kind of read it. And no. It's not just read it. It's like serious hours on really getting the script down so that we can then go live with it. So I just wrote down, the more you practice, right, on your own, chanting it, studying the script, presenting in the mirror, which I've done hundreds of times to really kind of see my body language and see what's going on. I've also filmed myself doing a lot of presentations, showed a lot about my body language and my facial gestures, and it really helped me a lot. Right? And acting the script out, the more you do that, the faster you will get results. Okay? So let's go to number 4, is how to learn to listen more deeply. And what the heck do I mean by deeply? Right? How do we listen more deeply is such a powerful, powerful thing. We've talked a lot about this with the repeating and the approval stuff. So, what are the typical responses that they give to each question? So that's the first step in really listening is, well, what's the typical responses? So, I know, everybody, that if I do an introduction, hi, this is Patrick, I work with so-and-so real estate, and, we just listed, we just sold, we sell a lot of homes in the area, and I was just wondering, when do you plan on moving? What I know is if I do that introduction and I ask that first question, when do you plan on moving? I know that I'm going to get probably a series of about 5 different responses and about 5 different variations. And there are going to be some little ones in there that have some hints that they're actually interested, but it'll be masked by an intro objection. They'll say, we're not thinking about it. We're not thinking about selling anytime soon. Now, we're not thinking about anytime soon. Is there an opportunity in there? Because what does anytime soon mean? Right? Versus someone who says, nope, we are not selling, period, end of story. Nope, we love our house. We're never moving. We love our house. We have 0 plans of moving. Can you see that those are completely 2 different questions or 2 different answers? So, when you start to listen more deeply and to really start to understand the typical responses, you're going to start to find all the little hints that you need to be able to move forward. Okay? And why do they respond that way? Well, it's human nature. It's human nature to not want to reveal my buying motivation to a salesperson. I know you're a salesperson. So when you say, have you had any thoughts of selling? My natural, like I can't even control it, natural response is like, not really. Well, what does not really mean? Not really means, I'm thinking about it right now. Do you see? You guys follow me? But it's just a natural. So why do they respond that way is really critical for you to start to understand. Okay, and we worked on this a lot, which is only repeating the most important things that they say, and to practice this repeating technique. Great little session with Chris the other day where I was really working with her on, okay, stop, like ask the question, let me answer, take your time, repeat back what you thought was important, and then move on. Where Chris was a little bit too anxious to have some type of filler in the air. And it's very natural. That's what most people do. So it's a skill that we actually have to practice and gain is ask a question, let them respond, think about the response, identify what's most important, repeat that back, and then ask the next question, right? Or give appropriate approval. This is such a critical skill, and it'll drive your listening and your understanding to an entire new level. And one of the side benefits, and Chris, we talked about this, one of the side benefits of the repeating skill is it buys you some time. So if I ask you, have you had any thoughts of selling? You say, no, not really. We haven't really thought about it. And I go, so no, not really. You really haven't thought about it. Okay. See, if I repeat that back completely, that buys me a little bit of time, A, to understand it a little bit better, and then B, to be able to now approve and appropriately and to be able to move on and to guide the conversation into a better direction. So you see what it says down there at the bottom is I needed this strategy so badly. I'm so passionate about it because I'm so damn analytical that I need to process everything that people say. And if I don't repeat back what people say, then I might look like a total dumb idiot because I'm like, "Dang." That people will make a statement and I'll just be staring at them because I'm analyzing everything. And then it takes me a second to finally get it out. So I'm very partial to this skill. And it's pretty amazing. So, great point. And I think this sums it all up right here is always seek first to understand before you seek to respond quickly. Always seek first to understand before you seek to respond quickly. Okay, great quote. So here we go. With human beings, and do you guys know who Master P is? That's actually what one of my friends calls me, Master P. So I had to put that in there. I was drinking a little bit of wine last night when I was creating this presentation. So it's having some fun. So this is a powerful point, is a human being's highest need is approval or recognition. Really, it's one of the most powerful things. Therefore, one of the best ways to, what's one of the best ways to give them recognition is one of the things that we've got to be kind of constantly seeking. So how can we approve of their opinion? How could we acknowledge what they're experiencing? And do that all with a sense of sincerity. Right? When I do that, I am able to take the meanest, nastiest person on the planet and turn them into an ally. I'm able to take the top CEO, hardcore, lawyer and turn them into an ally because of my skill set in this category. Right? These are the fastest ways for you to gain rapport, trust, and respect, which is really all about influence. So, last, point number, I think this is 6, is we must learn the most appropriate ways to approve on that question of the script. What's the most appropriate way to approve? What's the most appropriate way to give acknowledgement or to give recognition? So, when we get into the buyer questions, the buyer motivational questions, it's all about the recognition. When we are asking some of the, for sale by owner and expired questions, it's all about acknowledgement and approval. Right? So we've got to master that final aspect. Okay? Then the number next, which I don't have them numbered, so let's just look at this. I think it's all about closing. But my father said, and this is very powerful, he said a powerful close is just a natural ending to a great presentation. So all of the objections should be handled inside of your presentation. Therefore, there's no need for a big, hard close. And that's something that my father hammered into me and for 40 years, every real estate agent, and as one of the best presenters in the world. The guy's amazing. 4,000 people, is just talking to them like they're their best friends, keeps them completely captivated for 8 hours, 4 days in a row. No big deal. Right? The guy's incredible. But he really, this is such an important point because we can get a little bit into, oh, what's that great close that you got? Oh, I'm going to use that. And oh, what's that other great close? And what I found is, I like to follow his rule, which is just, I need to handle all of those little issues that I know that will come up in my presentation so that at the very end, it's just great. We should get together. We should meet. I'm super excited to introduce you to my boss. Like, based upon everything that you've said, based upon this conversation, this is a natural thing is for us to set up an appointment for my boss to come over and meet you, meet your wife, and take a look at your house and help you guys make this transition. See, that's a natural ending versus a don't you think it would be in your best interest, and if we could just spend 15 minutes, we can show you how to get you top dollar so that, when would be the best time? Tomorrow at 5 or 4 or tomorrow at 2. Do we really need that? So, when we're mastering a script, we've got to master the close. Okay? So we do need to master whatever the close is. And I just want you guys to realize that, each one of the different strategies has a different close. Like for you to close on keeping them up to date on the market and asking for an email, that's a close. Okay, that's a pretty easy one, but that's totally different than setting a face-to-face appointment with a new expired. It's a completely different close. If you're asking for the phone number of and the information of a referral, so you're calling the database and you said, anyone who's thinking about buying or selling? They said, sure, my friend is. And then you're closing to get the friend's phone number and email address and information. That's totally different than setting an appointment with the FSBO. Getting an email address for a home evaluation report is totally different than setting up they said they're super interested in selling, they're going to meet with agents, and you want to set an appointment with them like in the next 2 days. So, we do need to be sensitive to the different strategies to be able to really close depending on the lead sources. Okay? Last but not least is understanding the objections. Okay? And I'm running out of time, and I don't want to ruin my role play session, but understanding the objections, and we'll spend some more time on this, so I'm going to go fast, is what's a condition versus an objection? It's really, really important. So if they said, well, we love it here, we're never going to sell, is that an objection? No, that's actually a condition. But if they said, well, we want to wait until the market gets better, we want to wait until spring, see, that's actually an objection, right? And so you got to really learn the differences between conditions and objections. The second thing is it a reflex no versus an actual objection, right? A reflex no is, you know what, we aren't interested anymore, or take me off your list. Okay, look, the reflex no is we aren't interested anymore. That means there's something that happened that we need to discuss. Take me off the list is like, that's a condition. It's done. Like that's, that's over. No problem, we'll do that for you. Okay? There's the introduction reflex no's versus real conditions. Here's an example. We're not moving anytime soon. That in the beginning of the presentation, we love this house and we are not moving. You see, that's totally a condition. But we're not moving anytime soon is really just a reflex. And so that means that there's plenty more to go. The other is the big issue objections versus just a reflex delay when we're going to set appointments. This is a big one. So, there's a big difference between, hey, we're going to just try to sell it ourselves first. Well, that's a big issue objection, right? Before we meet with any real estate agents, versus, you're trying to set an appointment. They said, well, we need to talk to our spouse first. See, that's actually just a reflex delay. It's not an objection, right? If I set an appointment right now without my wife's approval, like that would be a total disaster, right? She'd be like, what are you doing? Right? So of course it's actually just a reflex delay that I'd say, well, I need to talk to my spouse. So it's not a big issue objection. Like the first one, they're like going FSBO. That's a total big issue objection. So, you can see that, the last is we've got to really start to understand the different types of objections. And, I recommend that, you guys take more notes when you're prospecting. I come to these live sessions and I say, all right, well, what objections, what issues, what concerns do you guys have? And I hear crickets. Burp, 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 burp. Or actually, I hear roosters in the background, right? So what that tells me is that you're not taking notes while you're prospecting. You're not really writing down the responses. You're really not writing down any questions or issues or roadblocks. So, you guys need to step up your game as more of a student of prospecting, of a student of real estate prospecting. So steps number 4 through 7 are to be practiced within your role play sessions. Okay, so why I want lots of role play is not because I want you guys to read the script to each other like a bedtime story. That's a waste of time. What I want you guys doing is working on these different skill sets, right? I want you guys really digging in together. On my role play session this morning with one of my great friends, I had a role play session, and we were talking about the challenge of the new expired and how abrupt the new expired is right at the beginning of the call, right? And so there was like, they're like, we're not selling anymore. They're like super in your face, abrupt. So guess what? We discussed that. Then guess what we worked on? So when I was an expired, I was super abrupt in the beginning, and he handled it and then moved me into the script. And then I asked him to do the same because I needed to be practicing being really quick and sharp to deal with that abruptness with the new expired. And then we both discussed how important the mimicking and mirroring is of the hello or the hi right in the beginning. And so we were kind of discussing that skill, how critical that skill is for us if we're going to be converting effectively with expireds. So then we practiced that back, really working on our mimicking and mirroring exactly how they said hello or hi and staying with it for a little bit and getting connected. So you can see in a role play session, guys, if you're just reading the script to each other, that is a waste of time. We have so many skills to work on. Really step up your game with communicating with your partner what lead source, what objections you're getting, what reflexes you're getting, and really start working with each other to make this thing effective. So your performance will only be as good as your practice. And I know that that's tough to get, but it's true. If you can't perform at a high level in a role play session, then you can't perform at a high level in a role play session. I'm sorry, live. So if you increase the intensity and create real and challenging scenarios in the role play, then your confidence rises dramatically. Okay? That's the name of the game. That's the power of this group. So to finish this off, the 7 steps to mastering a script: memorize the words in the line, seek to understand why each question is there and what's its purpose, learn and practice how to best deliver the line like an actor or an actress, listen deeply, learn to repeat their most important answers, give massive approval, acknowledgement, and recognition, master the art of the close for every different lead source and your script, right? And understand all the different types of objections versus conditions. So, hope you guys enjoyed that. I got to shut this down because I've got to jump to this next role play. So I look forward to talking to you guys tomorrow.